If you have allies and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours somebody wakes up and says, "Oh, we're out." Right. Is that the right way to do that?
The room was boiling with tension before a single word left Whoopi's mouth. Rand Paul had just taken his seat, but the atmosphere was already crackling. Like a lightning storm ready to explode, this wasn't going to be some polite exchange about politics. It was war waiting to happen. From the second the camera started rolling, you could feel it. This wasn't a welcome. The View's panel looked less like hosts and more like a firing squad. Every single one of them was itching to corner Rand Paul on every hotballic issue, from foreign policy to the flames of socialism. But Rand? He wasn't nervous. He was steady, calm, and razor-sharp. His eyes were cool, his mind even sharper, like a sword ready to strike. Whoopi pounced with rapid-fire questions, laced with bite and attitude. But Rand didn't blink. Actually, Turkey doesn't want Iran to take over anything, he said smoothly. Israel doesn't want Iran to take over anything, and Israel actually stands up for themselves all the time. Boom! That line hit hard. Gasps echoed from the crowd. Then came Sonny Hostin. Fired up and fierce, "We have massive taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff," she snapped. "Our public education system is a problem." But Rand didn't even flinch. He exposed the brutal truth about Venezuela's collapse, blaming it squarely on socialism.
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer
it's not
who's
true.
starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of Venezuela.
It's a kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's not a murderous thug, I'm not letting you finish because that's a damn lie.
As Rand laid out the brutal consequences of socialist policies, the studio went still, so quiet it was eerie. You could hear people shifting in their seats as reality set in. Bernie Sanders' version of socialism wouldn't even work in Denmark, Rand declared boldly. Even their prime minister said, "We're not socialists." The audience blinked, stunned. Then Rand hit even harder. "They tax the working class 60%, he shouted. "And they have a 25% sales tax on everyone, rich or poor." The numbers landed like punches. Whoopi's face tightened, her jaw clenched, like a trap ready to snap. And then, boom, came the line that shook the walls. "If you vote for socialism, you'll get socialism." Rand roared. The crowd clapped thunderously. An eruption of approval that made Whoopi's eyes narrow like daggers. That applause sent Whoopi spiraling. She turned to the audience with a glare so sharp it could have sliced glass. Ana Navarro jumped in fast, trying to steer things back to safer ground. "You talk a lot about Venezuela in your book," she began seriously. "But do you really think Democrats will turn the U.S. into Venezuela?" Rand didn't hesitate. "Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism." The room gasped again, like oxygen had vanished from the air. No, Maduro is not a socialist," Whoopi snapped, her voice shaking, practically yelling now. "He's a corrupt, murderous thug." Rand leaned in calmly. "That's true," he said. "But," Whoopi cut him off mid-sentence. "That's not true," she screamed. "Don't do this to me," her voice thundered with rage. "You're just saying this to score points," she accused. But Rand didn't break. "I have neighbors and friends from Venezuela," he said steadily. "They lived it. They saw it with their own eyes." Whoopi's face turned red with fury. Then, out of nowhere, she threw her hands up and yelled, "We'll be right back." She cut to commercial, mid-discussion. The audience sat frozen. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. It was chaos in real time. And yet, the fireworks weren't done. After the break, Rand brought up Syria, and that's when the entire show exploded again. As he calmly explained why U.S. troops should come home, Whoopi pounced with another fiery interruption.
It's a damn lie.
Wait, but
And I've got a bunch of neighbors and
I have
friends
30
who know
seconds.
this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old girl.
Thanks to Senator Rand Paul. His new book is called The Case Against Socialism, and we'll
I live in Miami. There's tens of thousands of Venezuelan exiles living there. You talk a lot about Venezuela in your new book. I get a lot of political ads from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has tweeted this. Many have tweeted this. If you vote for Democrats, they will turn the United States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Is that the right way to do it? Whoopi snapped. Rand didn't flinch. Not even for a second. Should we stay in wars forever? He asked firmly. Should we keep sending American kids into danger with no clear mission? His voice was steady, but every word struck like thunder. No, Whoopi. That's not leadership. That's recklessness, he said, louder now. He doubled down, declaring, the Iraq War was a failure, and both Trump and Obama knew it. His tone cut through the air like a blade. These regime change wars don't work. They create chaos, not peace. Joy looked stunned, her eyes wide in disbelief. Sunny crossed her arms, irritated. And Whoopi, she was boiling over again, ready to explode. You can't just leave like that, she barked. Her voice shook with anger. What about our allies? Rand stared straight ahead. Our allies? He repeated. Turkey? They're part of the chaos, he said it flatly, without apology. Let's not pretend they're saints. And then it happened. Again. Whoopi shouted over him mid-sentence. Let's go to break, she yelled. Her face flushed red, her voice strained and sharp. The room went dead quiet, like the air had been sucked out of the building. The camera panned awkwardly as the producers scrambled behind the scenes, but Rand Paul, he just sat there, cool, calm, and untouched. He had just dismantled the entire argument, and the panel was completely out of ammo. But then came the next ambush. Sunny Hostin suddenly pivoted to taxes, hoping for a hit. You support tax cuts that only help the rich, she accused, but Rand's reply hit like a hammer. The top 1% pay 40% of all income taxes in this country, he stated firmly. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% pay nothing. Gasps echoed through the audience again. Sunny looked caught, flat-footed. That's not true, she protested. Donald Trump doesn't pay income tax. But Rand didn't miss a beat. Those making less than $50,000, 0 cents, don't pay income tax, he said. That's not an opinion, it's a fact. He wasn't rattled, he was relentless.
If you have allies, and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours, somebody wakes up and says, "Oh, we're out."
Right.
Is that the right way to do this?
I think the way we look at wars, we don't look at
No. Is that the right way to do it?
Let me answer the question.
Okay.
When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution, which says we should declare war and put them in a war theater. But let me finish.
Okay.
And here's the thing about it, is if you ask these people, Lindsey Graham and the Cheney war and all these warmongers that want to stay at war forever, who are we going to declare war on? They don't know who. We're going to declare war on Turkey, our ally,
Should we
the
ever
Free Syrian
walk
Army, our
out
ally?
in the middle? It's like walking out.
We should never be there in the first place.
That's not the question, though. No, that's all good.
But see, the left agreed with
we're
me for
in
so
there.
many years. For so many years, the left agreed with me.
I am
that
neither
these
left nor right. I'm just American. I want to know, should we be taking, should we be walking out on people?
Whoopi leaned forward, arms tightly crossed, completely fed up. But Rand Paul didn't back down, not for a second. We have a progressive tax system, he said clearly. We've removed the poor from income tax obligations entirely, and yet people still scream about fairness. The room was hot, boiling with tension. Sunny looked frustrated, her tone sharp and defensive. But we don't have free health care, she cried. Our public schools are broken, Rand shot back without hesitation. Free? Nothing is free, he snapped. In Denmark, everyone pays for that so-called free stuff. His voice didn't waver. The working class in Scandinavia pays 25% in sales taxes and 60% in income taxes, he declared. Is that what you want? Because that's the real cost. He paused, just long enough for the weight of his words to hang in the air. The audience looked tense, some nodding, others whispering. Whoopi stared daggers at Rand Paul while Joy Behar shifted nervously in her seat. The plan was crumbling, and they knew it. But Rand? He leaned into the pressure like a veteran. He was in full control, answers sharp, facts loaded, and confidence unshakable. Let's not pretend socialism is some magical fix, he warned. It bankrupts countries and crushes the middle class. And just when the air started to settle, Whoopi snapped again. I'm not left or right, I'm just American, she blurted out like a last-minute defense. The room fell completely silent for a moment. Then Rand dropped a bombshell. Well, Whoopi, he said slowly, if you're just American, then maybe you should start listening to ideas that don't fit your narrative. That's what true Americans do. The audience exploded with applause. It was thunderous. Whoopi's face went stiff, her eyes wide with disbelief. She didn't expect that. For a split second, she looked totally lost. Her silence said everything. Rand had struck a nerve, and the crowd felt it too. Desperate to regain control, Whoopi mumbled something about how she never supported regime change, but it was too late.
We talked about his wanting to pull troops out of Syria, and everyone saying, if we do that, we're abandoning the Kurds. That's not a good idea. And a lot of folks are saying he crossed the line with a bad decision, but you don't say that. Why?
The Turks are also allies. The Free Syrian Army were our allies for 7 years. They're allied with the Turks. The Kurds have been our allies. The Kurds, in all likelihood, are now going to be allies of Assad to try to carve out a place in Syria for themselves. It's a really complicated question. I guess from my perspective, I say, any of these people out here, their kids have to go to war. War's not a chess game. People lose their limbs and people die, and I think it's the least we owe to the kids that we're going to send into this war. Why are we going to war and who are we fighting?
But isn't there...
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. So if you have allies and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours somebody wakes up and says, no, we're out. Right. Is that the right way to do this?
But Rand wasn't letting it slide. Well, then we agree, he said with a calm smile. Getting rid of Hussein and Gaddafi didn't bring peace, it brought more terrorism. His voice rang out strong and clear. The moment we step in and remove foreign leaders, he continued, we don't create freedom, we create chaos. The words were cutting, and the murmurs in the audience grew louder. People were shifting, clearly rethinking what they thought they knew. Joy Behar jumped in, her tone rising with urgency. So now what? She snapped. We just walk away? We abandon everyone? But Rand didn't move an inch. We never should have been there in the first place, he shouted. You can't abandon something you never had control over. Clapping started again, scattered but strong. The audience was still with him. Whoopi glanced off camera, clearly panicking, eyes darting toward the producers. She knew the moment was slipping away fast. Then came the most heated exchange of the entire show. Whoopi raised her voice again, louder than before. How do you explain the videos of people being slaughtered? That's what we left behind? Her voice cracked under pressure. The panel was spinning into chaos. Everyone started talking over each other, emotions high, tension unbearable. The audience was frozen, nobody sure where to look or what to do. Joy's face turned beet red. Sunny looked stunned, completely thrown off. And Whoopi, she was seconds from erupting again. And then, she did. As Rand tried to explain the layers of the Syrian conflict, Whoopi snapped, "Let's go to break." She barked. Her voice thundered like a cannon, echoing across the set. The music kicked in, but it couldn't cover the tension in the room. The cameras cut to commercial, but everyone watching at home knew the truth. This wasn't just awkward TV. This was war. Rand Paul had hijacked their entire segment, and when the show came back from break, the tension still hadn't lifted. Whoopi sat stiff, arms crossed, jaw clenched tight. But Rand? He shifted in his seat like nothing had happened. Calm, confident, fully in control. The panel looked rattled, but he wasn't done, not even close.
But here's the thing is, left and right have agreed in the past that regime change doesn't work. When we got rid of Hussein, we got chaos and more terrorism. When we got rid of Gaddafi, chaos and more terrorism.
But Senator, we're here now, though. But we're here.
Yeah. We're not really here. We got 50 people. We're not
here.
doing anything.
Yeah, but frankly,
50 people
hold
is
on,
very
hold on.
symbolic.
Hold on.
And that is why it
and
kept
you tell their parents
Turkey
that.
from invading.
You tell their parents
Isn't that true?
You tell the parents of those 50 kids how great the symbolism was when a suicide bomber blows up all 50
But
kids.
didn't it
You
keep
tell
Turkey
them
from
no,
invading?
No,
And
I'm not.
pulling them gave
You tell
Turkey
their
the
parents.
green light.
You tell their
Isn't
parents
that
why
true?
they're there.
But
You
isn't
tell-
that true?
You tell their parents why
Isn't
they're
it
there.
true that Turkey
You
did
tell
not
their
invade? How do you feel about the video that we're seeing of the Kurds getting slaughtered?
I find the position of pulling out of these wars, that's a popular one, and I am there. There's a difference in having a strategy and leaving.
Sunny Hostin, desperate for control, grabbed for a lifeline. She changed the subject fast. You support a president who lies and cheats, she fired sharply. But Rand didn't even blink. This isn't about one man, he shot back. This is about policy and the truth you refuse to hear. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. You're defending a system that keeps making the same mistakes. He raised his voice just enough to rise above the protests coming from every direction on the panel. How many more wars? How many more broken promises? How many more young lives? The audience roared with claps again. Louder, longer this time. And the more the host pushed against him, the more the crowd leaned in. Rand was gaining ground with every word. Whoopi looked beyond fed up now, her face tight with frustration, her patience gone. Then, the moment that shattered the whole show. As Rand tried to finish a point about foreign intervention, Whoopi stood up. She slammed her hand down on the table and yelled, "Enough! We're done here!" Gasps exploded across the studio. Joy's eyes went wide. Sunny turned her face away. The audience froze in place. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. Whoopi stormed off the set, leaving cameras scrambling and producers in chaos. Rand Paul didn't say a word. He just sat there, hands folded, calm as ever. No gloating, no smirking, just presence, steady and unshaken. He had walked into the lion's den and forced the lions to flee. The producers rushed to save the moment, cutting to an emergency commercial break, but the damage was already done. Across the internet, clips were already spreading like wildfire. Hashtags were exploding. Rand Paul had turned the view into a battlefield and walked away without a scratch. When the show returned, Whoopi was gone. Joy tried to crack a few light jokes, but the tension didn't fade. The damage was done. Rand had walked into their house and left it in shambles.
I just want to ask you this because I'm a gun owner. You know, I don't mind that you know that I have a gun. You can come in my house and look for you. You can get all whatever you need. I don't understand why anyone objects to getting rid of automatic weapons. Automatic weapons, they're not for hunting. They do nothing. They're only there to kill. And you'll notice that a lot of the things that have happened with automatic weapons. When we see that, why don't we say, you know, who really needs to have one other than people who are at war?
Yeah, what is your advice?
Truly automatic weapons we don't have. You know, we banned truly automatic weapons, I think, in 1934.
But we still got a lot of them, Rand. Come on.
Well, what we have is not automatic weapons, though we have semi-automatic. So they fire in a fairly fast sequence, but you can't pull the trigger and they come like a machine gun. Those are no longer out.
But outside the studio, the reaction was immediate, and it was explosive. Viral tweets, surging videos, political pundits were spinning in every direction, trying to make sense of what had just unfolded on live TV. The headline screamed what millions had just witnessed. Rand Paul destroyed The View live on air. Even Whoopi's usual defenders were left stunned. One user posted, "Rand Paul just exposed everything wrong with The View." Another wrote, "This was the most honest moment on television in years." This wasn't just about politics anymore. It was about power, control, and the truth. And one guest who refused to bow down to media pressure. Rand Paul didn't just survive the interview, he flipped the script on the entire panel. He walked into their studio like a lone wolf and made the whole pack back off. And when he stepped through those studio doors afterward, cameras followed him, not to mock him, but to capture the calm face of a man who had just taken on TV's most combative hosts and won. The hosts were left in pieces, staring at the wreckage of a segment they thought they controlled. But Rand didn't yell. He didn't storm out. He didn't lose his cool. He did it all with one thing: the truth. And now the question echoes. Did Rand Paul go too far, or did he finally say what millions had been thinking for years? One thing's for sure. This wasn't just another daytime interview. It was a televised takedown the internet will never forget. Like and subscribe if you believe Rand Paul exposed the truth, and don't forget to comment your thoughts below. This battle? It's far from over.